The descent beckons as the ascent beckoned. Memory is a kind of accomplishment, a sort of renewal, even an initiation, since the spaces it opens are new places inhabited by hordes heretofore unrealized, of new kinds, since their movements are toward new objectives, even though formerly they were abandoned. No defeat is made up entirely of defeat, since the world it opens is always a new place, formerly unsuspected. A world lost, a world unsuspected, beckons to new places, and no whiteness lost is so white as the memory of whiteness. With evening, love wakens, though its shadows, which are alive by reason of the sun shining, grow sleepy now and drop away from desire. Love without shadows stirs now, beginning to awaken as night advances. The descent, made up of despairs and without accomplishment, realizes a new awakening, which is a reversal of despair. For what we cannot accomplish, what is denied to love, what we have lost in the anticipation, a descent follows, endless and indestructible. The smell of the heat is boxwood. When rousing us, the movement of the air stirs our thoughts that had no life in them to a life in which two women agonize. To live and to breathe is no less. Two young women. The box odor is the odor of that of which, partaking separately, each to herself, I partake also separately. Be patient that I address you in a poem. There is no other fit medium. The mind lives there. It is uncertain, can trick us and leave us agonized. But for resources, what can equal it? There is nothing. We should be lost without its wings to fly off upon. The mind is the cause of our distresses, but of it we can build anew. Oh, something more than it flies off to, a woman's world of crossed sticks, stopping thought. A new world is only a new mind, and the mind and the poem are all apiece. Two young women to be snared, odor of box, to bind and hold them for the mind's labors. All women are fated similarly facing men, and there is always another such as I who loves them, loves all women, but finds himself touching them like other men, often confused. I have two sons, the husbands of these women, who live also in a world of love apart. Shall this odor of box in the heat not also touch them fronting a world of women from which they are debarred by the very sense which draw them on against easy access? In our family, we stammer unless, half mad, we come to speech at last, and I am not a young man. My love encumbers me. It is a love less than a young man's love, but like this box odor, more penetrant, infinitely more penetrant, in that sense not to be resisted. There is, in the hard give and take of a man's life with a woman, a thing which is not the stress itself, but beyond and above that, something that wants to rise and shake itself free, We are not chickadees on a limb with a worm in the mouth. The worm is in our brains and concerns them, and not food for our offspring. Wants to disrupt our thought and throw it to the newspapers or anywhere. There is, in short, a counter-stress born of the sexual shock which survives it, consonant with the mood, to keep its own mind. There is, of course, more. Women are not alone in that. At least, while this healing odor is abroad, one can write a poem. Staying here in the country on an old farm, we eat our breakfasts on a balcony under an elm. The shrubs below us are neglected, and there, penned in, or he would eat the garden, lives a pet goose who tilts his head sideways and looks up at us, a very quiet old fellow who writes no poems. Fine mornings we sit there while birds come and go. A pair of robins is building a nest for the second time this season. Men, against their reason, speak of love sometimes when they are old. It is all they can do, or watch a heavy goose who waddles slopping noisily in the mud of his pool. The precise counterpart of a cacophony of bird calls lifting the sun almighty into his sphere, woodwinds, clarinet, and violin sound a prolonged ah. Ah, the sun is about to rise and shed his beams, as he has always done, upon us all, drudges and those who live at ease, women and men, upon the old, upon children and the sick who are about to die and are indeed dead in their beds, to whom his light is forever lost. The cello raises his bass note manfully in the treble din. Ah, ah, and ah, together unattuned, seeking a common tone. Love is that common tone, shall raise his fiery head and sound his note. The purpose of an orchestra is to organize those sounds and hold them to an assembled order, in spite of the wrong note. Well, shall we think or listen? Is there a sound addressed not wholly to the ear? We half close our eyes. We do not hear it through our eyes. It is not a flute note either. It is the relation of a flute note to a drum. I am wide awake. The mind is listening. The ear is alerted, but the ear, in a half-reluctant mood, stretches and yawns. And so the banked violins in three tiers enliven the scene pizzicato. For a short memory, or to make the listener listen, the theme is repeated, stressing a variant. It is a principle of music to repeat the theme, repeat and repeat again as the pace mounts. The theme is difficult, but no more difficult than the facts to be resolved. Repeat and repeat the theme, and all it develops to be, until thought is dissolved in tears. Our dreams have been assaulted by a memory that will not sleep. The French horns interpose their voices. I love you. My heart is innocent, and this the first day of the world. Say to them, Man has survived hitherto because he was too ignorant to know how to realize his wishes. Now that he can realize them, he must either change them or perish. Now is the time. In spite of the wrong note, I love you. My heart is innocent, and this the first and last day of the world. Birds twitter now anew, but a design surmounts their twittering. It is the design of a man that makes them twitter. It is a design. Mother of God, Our Lady, the heart is an unruly master. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who have sinned against us. We submit ourselves to your rule, as the flowers in May submit themselves to your holy rule against that impossible springtime when men shall be the flowers spread at your feet. As far as spring is from winter, so are we from you now. We have not come easily to your environs, but painfully across sands that have scored our feet. That which we have suffered was for us to suffer. Now, in the winter of the year, the birds who know how to escape suffering by flight are gone. Man alone is that creature who cannot escape suffering by flight. I do not come to you, save that I confess to being half man and half woman. I have seen the ivy cling to a piece of crumbled wall so that you cannot tell by which either stands. This is to say, if she to whom I cling is loosened, both of us go down. Mother of God, I have seen you stoop to a merest flower and raise it and press it to your cheek. I could have called out joyfully, but you were too far off. You are a woman, and it was a woman's gesture. You have no lover now in the bare skies to bring you flowers or whisper to you under a hedge. Howbeit, you are young and fit to be loved. I declare it boldly, with my heart in my teeth and my knees knocking together, but I declare it, and by God's word, it is no lie. Make us humble and obedient to his rule. There are men who, as they live, fling caution to the wind, and women praise them and love them for it, cruel as the claws of a cat. The moon, which they have vulgarized recently, is still your planet, as it was Venus before you. What do you think they will attain by their ships that death has not already given them? Their ships should be directed inward upon, but I am an old man. I have had enough. The female principle of the world is my appeal, in the extremity to which I have come. O clemens, O pia, O dulcis Maria. What shall I say, because talk I must? That I have found a cure for the sick. I have found no cure for the sick but this crooked flower, which only to look upon all men are cured. This is that flower for which all men sing secretly their hymns of praise. This is that sacred flower. Can this be so? A flower so crooked and obscure? It is a mustard flower, and not a mustard flower, a single spray, topping the deformed stem of fleshy leaves in this freezing weather under glass. An ungainly flower, and an unnatural one in this climate. What can be the reason that it has picked me out to hold me open-mouthed, rooted before this window in the cold, my will drained from me, so that I have only eyes for these yellow, twisted petals? That the sight, though strange to me, must be a common one, is clear. There are such flowers, with such leaves, native to some climate which they can call their own. But why the torture and the escape through the flowers? It is as if Michelangelo had conceived the subject of his slaves from this, or might have done so. And did he not make the marble bloom? I am sad as he was sad in his heroic mood. But also, I have eyes that are made to see, and if they see ruin for myself and all that I hold dear, they see also, through the eyes and through the lips and tongue, the power to free myself and speak of it, as Michelangelo, through his hands, had the same, if greater, power, which leaves to account for the tortured bodies of the slaves themselves, and the tortured body of my flower, which is not a mustard flower at all, but some unrecognized and unearthly flower, for me to naturalize in a climate and choose it for my own. According to their need, this tall Negro evangelist at a table separate from the rest of his party, these two young Irish nuns, to be described subsequently, and this white-haired Anglican have come witlessly to partake of the host laid for them and for me by the tired waitresses. It is all, since eat we must, made sacred by our common need. The evangelist's assistants are most open in their praise, though covered, as would be seemly in such a public place. The nuns are all black, a side view. The cleric, his head bowed to reveal his unruly poll, dines alone. My eyes are restless. The evangelists eat well, fried oysters and what not, at this railway restaurant. The sisters are soon satisfied. One, on leaving, looking straight before her under steadfast brows, reveals blue eyes. I myself have brown eyes and a milder mouth. There is nothing to eat, seek it where you will, but the body of the Lord. The blessed plants and the sea yielded to the imagination intact, and by that force it becomes real. Bitterly to the poor animals who suffer and die that we may live. The well-fed evangels, the narrow-lipped and bright-eyed nuns, the tall white-haired Anglican, proclaim it by their appetites, as do I also, chomping with my worn-out teeth. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. no matter how well they are fed, how daintily they put the food to their lips. It is all according to the imagination. Only the imagination is real. They have imagined it, therefore it is so. Of the evangels, with the long legs characteristic of the race, only the docile women of the party smiled at me when, with my eyes, I accosted them. The nuns, but after all, I saw only a face, a young face cut off at the brows. It was a simple story. The cleric, plainly from a good school, interested me more, a man with whom I might carry on a conversation. No one was there save for the food, which I alone, being a poet, could have given them. But I had only my eyes with which to speak. Of asphodel, that greeny flower, I come, my sweet, to sing to you. My heart rouses, thinking to bring you news of something that concerns you and concerns many men. Look at what passes for the new. You will not find it there, but in despised poems. It is difficult to get the news from poems, yet men die miserably every day for lack of what is found there. Hear me out, for I too am concerned, and every man who wants to die in his bed beside. The alphabet of the trees is fading in the song of the leaves. The crossing bars of the thin letters that spelled winter and the cold have been illumined with pointed green by the rain and sun. The strict, simple principles of straight branches are being modified by pinched-out ifs of color, devout conditions, the smiles of love, until the stripped sentences move as a woman's limbs under cloth and praise from secrecy, quick with desire, love's ascendancy. In summer, the song sings itself above the muffled words. When over the flowering, sharp pasture's edge, unseen, the salt ocean lifts its form, chicory and daisies, tide released, seem hardly flowers alone, but color and the movement, or the shape perhaps, of restlessness, whereas the sea is circled and sways peacefully upon its plant-like stem. The yachts contend in a sea which the land partly encloses, shielding them from the too heavy blows of an ungoverned ocean, which, when it chooses, tortures the biggest hulls, the best man knows to pit against its beatings, and sinks them pitilessly. Moth-like in mists, scintillant in the minute brilliance of cloudless days, with broad bellying sails, they glide to the wind, tossing green water from their sharp prows, while over them the crew crawls ant-like, solicitously grooming them, releasing making fast as they turn, lean far over, and having caught the wind again, side by side, head for the mark. In a well-guarded arena of open water, surrounded by lesser and greater craft, which, sycophant, lumbering, and flittering follow them, they appear youthful, rare as the light of a happy eye, live with the grace of all that in the mind is fleckless, free, and naturally to be desired. Now the sea which holds them is moody, lapping their glossy sides as if feeling for some slightest flaw, but fails completely. Today, no race. Then the wind comes again. The yachts move, jockeying for a start. The signal is set, and they are off. Now the waves strike at them, but they are too well made. They slip through, though they take in canvas. Arms with hands grasping seek to clutch at the prows. Bodies thrown recklessly in the way are cut aside. It is a sea of faces about them in agony, in despair, until the horror of the race dawns staggering the mind. The whole sea become an entanglement of watery bodies, lost to the world, desiring what they cannot hold, broken, beaten, desolate. Reaching from the dead to be taken up, they cry out, failing, their cries rising in waves still, as the skillful yachts pass over. Though I'm no Catholic, I listen hard when the bells in the yellow brick tower of their new church ring down the leaves, ring in the frost upon them and the death of the flowers, ring out the grackle toward the south, the sky darkened by them. Ring in the new baby of Mr. and Mrs. Krantz, which cannot for the fat of its cheeks open well its eyes. Ring out the parrot under its hood, jealous of the child. Ring in Sunday morning and old age, which adds as it takes away. Let them ring, only ring over the oil painting of a young priest on the church wall, advertising last week's novena to St. Anthony. Ring for the lame young man in black, with gaunt cheeks and wearing a derby hat, who is hurrying to 11 o'clock Mass. The grapes still hanging to the vine along the nearby Concordia Hala, like broken teeth in the head of an old man. Let them ring for the eyes, and ring for the hands, and ring for the children of my friend who no longer hears them ring, but with a smile and in a low voice speaks of the decisions of her daughter and the proposals and betrayals of her husband's friends. Oh, bells, ring for the ringing, the beginning and the end of the ringing. Ring, 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 Catholic bells. O strong-ridged and deeply hollowed nose of mine, what would you not be smelling? What tactless asses we are, you and I, bony nose, always indiscriminate, always unashamed. And now it is the souring flowers that the bedraggled poplars, a festering pulp on the wet earth beneath them. With what deep thirst we quicken our desires to that rank odor of a passing springtime. Can you not be decent? Can you not reserve your ardors for something less unlovely? What girl will care for us, do you think, if we continue in these ways? Must you taste everything? Must you know everything? Must you have a part in everything? It is the whales that drive the small fish into the fjords. I have seen 40 or 50 of them in the water at one time. I have been in a little boat when the water was burning on all sides of us from them swimming underneath. The noise of the herring can be heard nearly a mile. So thick in the water they are, you can't dip the oars in. All silver. And all those millions of fish must be taken each one by hand. The women and children pull out a little piece under the throat with their fingers so that the brine gets inside. I've seen thousands of barrels packed with the fish on the shore. In winter, they set the gill nets for the cod. Hundreds of them are caught each night. In the morning, the men pull in the nets and the fish all together in the boats. Cod so big, I have seen, that when a man held one up above his head, the tail swept the ground. Sardines, mackerel, anchovies, all of these. And in the rivers, trout and salmon. I have seen a net set at the foot of a falls, and in the morning 60 trout in it. But I guess there are not such fish in Norway nowadays. On the Lofoten Islands till I was 12, not a tree or a shrub on them. But in summer, with the sun never gone, the grass is higher than here. The sun circles the horizon. Between 12 and 1 at night, it is very low, near the sea to the north. Then it rises a little, slowly, until midday. Then down again, and so for 3 months, getting higher at first, then lower, until it disappears. In winter, the snow is often as deep as the ceiling of this room. If you go there, you will see many Englishmen near the falls and on the bridges fishing. They will stand there for hours to catch the fish. Near the shore, where the water is 20 feet or so, you can see the king flounders on the sand. They have red spots on the side. Men come in boats and stick them with long pointed poles. Have you seen how the Swedes drink tea? So, in the saucer. They blow it and turn it this way and then that. So. Tall, gaunt, great drooping nose, eyes dark circled, the voice slow and smiling. I have seen boys stand where the stream is narrow, a foot each side on 2 rocks, and grip the trout as they pass through. They have a special way to hold them, in the gills, so. Long fingers, arched like grapple hooks. Then the impatient silence, while a little man said, "The English are great sportsmen. At the winter resorts where I stayed, they were always the first up in the morning, the first on with skis. I once saw a young Englishman worth 70 million pounds. You do not know the North. You will see perhaps Huldra, with long tails and all blue from the night, and the Neka, half man and half fish. When they see one of them, they know some boat will be lost." Yellow, 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 yellow. It is not a color. It is summer. It is the wind on a willow, the lap of waves, the shadow under a bush. A bird, a bluebird, 3 herons, a dead hawk rotting on a pole. Clear yellow. It is a piece of blue paper in the grass, or a 3-cluster of green walnuts swaying. Children play croquet, or one boy fishing, a man swinging his pink fists as he walks. It is ladies' thumb, forget-me-nots in the ditch, moss under the flange of the car rail, the wavy lines in split rock, a great oak tree. It is a disinclination to be 5 red petals or a rose. It is a cluster of bird's breast flowers on a red stem 6 feet high, 4 open yellow petals above sepals curled backward into reverse spikes. Tufts of purple grass spot the green meadow and clouds the sky. The pure products of America go crazy. Mountain folk from Kentucky or the ribbed north end of Jersey with its isolate lakes and valleys, its deaf-mutes, thieves, old names, and promiscuity between devil-may-care men who have taken to railroading out of sheer lust of adventure, and young slatterns bathed in filth from Monday to Saturday, to be tricked out that night with gods from imaginations who have no peasant traditions to give them character, but flutter and flaunt sheer rags, succumbing without emotion save numb terror under some hedge of chokecherry or viburnum, which they cannot express, unless it be that marriage, perhaps, with a dash of Indian blood, will throw up a girl so desolate, so hemmed round with disease or murder, that she'll be rescued by an agent, reared by the state, and sent out at 15 to work in some hard-pressed house in the suburbs, some doctor's family, some Elsie, voluptuous water expressing with broken brain the truth about us. Her great ungainly hips and flopping breasts addressed to cheap jewelry, and rich young men with fine eyes, as if the earth under our feet were an excrement of some sky, and we degraded prisoners destined to hunger until we eat filth, while the imagination strains after deer, going by fields of goldenrod in the stifling heat of September. Somehow it seems to destroy us. It is only in isolate flecks that something is given off. No one to witness and adjust, no one to drive the car. Between walls, the back wings of the hospital where nothing will grow, lie cinders in which shine the broken pieces of a green bottle. The green-blue ground is ruled with silver lines to say the sun is shining, and on this moral sea of grass or dreams lie flowers or baskets of desire. Heaven knows what they are, between cerulean shapes laid regularly round, matte roses and tridentate leaves of gold, threes, and threes, 3 roses in 3 stems, the baskets floating, standing in the horns of blue, repeated to the ceiling, to the windows, where the day blows in the scalloped curtains to the sound of rain. To the bob-white's call and drone of reaper tumbling daisies in the sun, one by one, about the smutting panels of white doors, gray shingles slip and fall. But you, a loveliness of even lines curving to the throat, the crossroads is your home. You are, upon your steady stem, one trumpeted wide flower slightly tilted above a scale of buds. Sometimes a farmer's wife gathers an armful for her pitcher on the porch, topping a stone wall against the shale ledge, a fieldful by the road to the river, the edge of the woods, opening in the sun, closing with the dark, everywhere, red lily. In your common cup all beauty lies.